Right now, while you're watching this, XRP is physically disappearing. Not the price, the coins themselves. 1 year ago, there were almost 4 billion XRP sitting on exchanges, ready to be sold at any moment. Today, 1.6 billion. More than half of it gone, pulled off the shelves and locked away. That's the lowest level in 7 years, and almost nobody is telling you what it actually means. So let me show you where it went. Because while retail is out here arguing over fake screenshots and made-up price tags, the biggest money on earth is moving in complete silence. 7 American funds have quietly swallowed nearly 1 billion XRP. An Italian banking giant just showed up holding millions of dollars in an XRP fund. And actual central banks are testing tokenized money on the very rails XRP was built for. None of that hits your feed. All of it is real. All of it is documented, and all of it is happening right now. Here's the picture. Imagine squeezing a spring, tighter and tighter, every single day. Coins leaving exchanges faster than they have in 7 years. ETFs locking them away by the hundreds of millions. The available supply getting thinner by the week. That is a coiled spring. And a spring like this does not stay quiet forever. But I'm going to do something the hype channels never will. I'm going to tell you the honest part too. The one thing that decides whether this spring actually fires or just sits there. Because you deserve the truth, not a fairy tale. So if you've been holding through the doubt, through the red days, through everyone telling you that you were crazy, this video is for you. Stop scrolling. Let me show you what's really happening under the surface and why the people who understand it are the calmest people in the room. Quick honest word before we start. I'm not a financial advisor, and nothing here is a price promise, especially not a magic number off a fake tweet. This is me walking you through real data, straight, like family. Supply setups aren't guarantees. Markets can stay quiet longer than you'd think, so do your own research and never risk what you can't afford to lose. We're early, and we're in it together. Let me start by clearing something out of the way, because I refuse to build anything on a lie. You've probably seen it. A screenshot, a Wall Street logo, big letters screaming $10,000 XRP, and maybe a clip of a guy at a microphone with the words, "Can XRP reach 10,000?" slapped across the bottom. It's everywhere right now. Here's the truth. That's smoke. The account behind a lot of these is not who it claims to be. The clip everybody's passing around? It's a random guest sharing a guess with a giant price tag stitched onto it to make it feel official. Nobody credible on Wall Street stood up and confirmed $10,000. It didn't happen. And look, I could just run with it. It would probably get more clicks. But I'm not going to insult you like that. Because here's what makes me a little angry. The people faking that number are sitting right on top of a real story that's actually more exciting, and they're too lazy to tell it. So let's do the opposite of lazy. If you want a real name attached to a real forecast, here's one. Geoffrey Kendrick, the head of digital assets research at Standard Chartered, an actual global bank, has an aggressive target of around $8 by the end of the year. Now, that's his opinion, not a promise. And plenty of analysts land lower, closer to the 3 to 3.5 range. But notice the gap. A real bank analyst says a number, and the hype machine multiplies it by more than 1,000 and slaps it on a fake tweet. That gap, right there, is the whole problem with this space. And it's exactly why we're going to ignore the fantasy and go straight to the thing that's actually real, measurable, and honestly, more powerful. The supply. Because while everyone's staring at a made-up number, XRP is quietly vanishing off the market. Let me show you. And this next number? You can verify it yourself in about 30 seconds. Okay, here's where it gets good, because everything I'm about to tell you is on-chain and public. No screenshots, no trust me bro, just data. According to Glassnode, which tracks this stuff coin by coin, the amount of XRP sitting on the top exchanges has collapsed. Roughly a year ago, it was around 4 billion coins. Today, it's down to about 1.6 billion. That is a drop of more than 50%, and it's the lowest exchange supply we've seen in about 7 years. Let me translate what that actually means because it matters. The XRP sitting on an exchange is the XRP that's available to be sold. It's the inventory on the shelf. When that number falls, it means people are pulling their coins off the exchanges and moving them into private wallets and cold storage. And you don't move your coins into a vault if you're about to sell them tomorrow. You do it when you're planning to hold for a long time. So more than half the shelf inventory just walked out the door. Where did it go? A lot of it went into the hands of people who simply refused to sell. And a huge chunk of it went somewhere even more interesting. It went into ETFs. Right now, there are 7 spot XRP ETFs trading in the United States. And together, they've quietly locked away close to 1 billion XRP on behalf of their investors. That's not coins waiting to be flipped. That's coins bought with real institutional money and put into custody, off the market, sitting still. Put those two forces together and you see the shape of it. Long-term holders taking coins off exchanges on one side, ETFs vacuuming up coins and locking them away on the other. The available float, the actual XRP anyone can buy right now, is getting thinner and thinner. That's the coiled spring. It's real, it's measurable, and it's tightening every single week. But a tight spring is only half the story. Here's the part nobody has the guts to say. All right, deep breath. This is the section that separates this channel from the hype farms, so hear me out because it'll make you a smarter holder. A shrinking supply is powerful, but a shrinking supply all by itself does not guarantee the price explodes. And anybody who tells you it's a mathematical certainty is selling you something. Here's the honest mechanic. A thin float is like dry kindling. It's ready to catch. But kindling doesn't light itself. It needs a spark. And that spark is demand. Real buying pressure showing up all at once. When you have a thin supply and a wave of new demand hits at the same time, that's when you get those violent screen-melting moves, because there's barely any coin available to satisfy the buyers. But if the supply gets thin and demand just sits there quiet, then the spring stays coiled. It can stay coiled longer than you'd think. And I'll be straight with you, that's part of what we've seen this year. The supply tightened, the coins vanished, and the price still had a rough stretch, because the big wave of demand hadn't arrived yet. Now, why am I telling you the bearish-sounding part in a video that's supposed to hype you up? Because this is the reframe that actually protects you. A tight float with quiet demand isn't a failure. It's a loaded setup waiting for a trigger. The kindling is stacked, the spring is compressed, and the moment real demand shows up, whether that's regulation, a wave of ETF buying, or institutions flipping the switch on real usage, the thin supply doesn't soften the move. It amplifies it. So the honest takeaway is the most bullish thing I can give you, precisely because it's true. XRP is being quietly loaded like a spring. What we're waiting on isn't more supply leaving, it's demand arriving. And when you understand that, you stop panicking at every red candle, and you start watching for the one thing that actually matters. Quick gut check, and I really want your answer below. Yes or no? Do you think the demand catalyst, the spark, shows up within the next 12 months? Just type yes or no. I read every single one, and I want to feel where this community's conviction really is. And speaking of demand, look at who's already quietly lining up. Here's a rule that saved me a lot of grief. Ignore the loudest voices. Watch the heaviest ones. And lately, the heavy money has been showing up in ways that don't make headlines, but absolutely should. Start with the ETF flows, because they're public. Cumulatively, these XRP funds have pulled in around $1.5 billion. Names you'd recognize: Bitwise, Franklin Templeton, Grayscale, Canary are all in the mix, some days doing the heavy lifting almost single-handedly. And remember what an ETF inflow actually is. It's not a tweet. It's a firm going into the market, buying real XRP and locking it into custody. Every dollar of inflow is a coin leaving that thin shelf we just talked about. Then there's the one that really made me sit up. Italy's largest bank, Intesa Sanpaolo, showed up in a public filing holding around 700,000 shares of a Grayscale XRP product, worth roughly $18 million at the time. And this isn't a rumor from an anonymous account. It's in a filing with the SEC. You can look it up yourself. One of the biggest banks in Europe, quietly holding XRP exposure, on the record. Sit with that for a second, because a year or two ago, that sentence would have sounded insane. A major European bank, on a government filing, holding XRP. That's not hype. That's the future showing up early and not making a sound about it. And this is exactly the world Ripple's leadership has been describing for years. Brad Garlinghouse and Stu Alderoty never pitched XRP as a lottery ticket. They pitched it as financial infrastructure that serious institutions would eventually need. Well, here they come. Not with a press conference, with a filing, with an ETF allocation, with coins quietly leaving the market. That's what real adoption looks like. It's boring, it's documented, and it's a lot more convincing than any screaming thumbnail. But the biggest signal of all isn't a bank buying a fund. It's where XRP is being tested. Let me end with the part that plays out over years, not days, because this is the foundation under everything. There's a project called Agora, led by the Bank for International Settlements, basically the central bank for central banks. And it has pulled in a serious lineup, major central banks and a long list of the world's biggest private banks, all testing the same thing: how to move tokenized money across borders on shared digital rails. Now, I have to be honest with you the way I always am, because this is where hype channels overreach. Project Agora is not an XRP-only project. It's built to be multi-chain. It tests several networks, and the XRP Ledger is one option among others like Canton, Avalanche, Solana, and Stellar. So no, this is not central banks chose XRP. Anyone telling you that is stretching it. But here's why it still matters enormously, and why I'm genuinely excited about it. The entire design of this new system is interoperability. Bank A might settle on the XRP Ledger, Bank B on another network. And the whole point is that they can still transact seamlessly. In a world like that, you don't need XRP to win by knockout. You need XRP to be one of the trusted rails in the room. And it is. It's being tested at the highest level of global finance, right alongside the biggest names in the space. And there's a very specific role XRP plays that fits this perfectly: bridging. Ripple's own stablecoin executive, Jack McDonald, put it plainly. Every time their stablecoin, RLUSD, is minted or moved on the XRP ledger, XRP is the native token that greases the wheels. It's the bridge asset that lets one currency flow into another. As that activity grows, and it's already grown into the hundreds of millions, XRP's utility grows right under it. So connect the dots. Central banks testing tokenized settlement. XRP sitting as one of the trusted rails. A stablecoin using XRP as its bridge. That's not a moonshot fantasy. That's XRP quietly earning a seat at the table where the future of money is being built. And here's the beautiful part. All of that demand I told you the spring is waiting for, this is where it comes from. Not hype. Usage. So let me bring it all the way home. Forget the fake $10,000 tweet. You don't need it. Because the real story is stronger, and it's true. XRP is vanishing off exchanges at a pace we haven't seen in 7 years. ETFs are locking away nearly 1 billion coins. A major European bank is on the record holding it. And central banks are testing the exact rails it was built for. The supply is a coiled spring. And the demand? It's not a fantasy. You can watch it being built, filing by filing, use case by use case. I know it's been a long road. The doubt, the red days, the people who called you crazy for seeing this early. I felt every bit of it too. But look at the evidence tonight. You weren't crazy. You were just early, watching the rest of the world quietly start to catch up. The pain doesn't last forever. It never does. We're early. The foundation is being poured. And I would so much rather stand right here with you, watching real coins leave the market and real institutions show up, than chase a number somebody invented for a thumbnail. So do your own research this week. Tune out the fake screenshots and come back tomorrow, because this is moving fast and I'll be right here to walk you through every piece of it. This is Crypto with BHW, where we tell it straight with heart.